Hey everybody, welcome to the Real United States. And it's another episode of On This Day, where we're remembering the 50th anniversary of some rather significant historic events here in the United States. And today we honor the 50th anniversary of the day that Robert Rayford died. Now, if you aren't familiar with that name, hang on and you will be. Rayford was a 15-year-old, 16-year-old at the time of his death, black man from St. Louis area, and he became the first North American case to perish from HIV/AIDS. And at the time of his death, of course, they didn't know what it was, and that was not what he was, diagnosed with. It's not what his cause of death was. His cause of death, of course, was pneumonia, because his immune system had gone away. And Rayford probably, as near as I can tell from the timeline of events, probably was infected as early as 1966. There isn't a great deal of records. Apparently, he himself was not terribly forthcoming with information to his caregivers, but it is reported that he had told them that his uncle had suffered the same symptomology and died at the age of 52 in 1966. So it's believed that that may have been the time frame that he became infected. How he became infected, again, is a matter of debate. It's believed that he may have been abused. It's believed that he may have been involved in child prostitution, although he would have been 15 years old when he first started exhibiting serious signs of this. We may never know 100% accurately, but when he died, they did an autopsy, and they found a lot of things that just didn't make any sense to him. And so the diagnosis was not terribly accurate, but they saved tissue and fluid samples in cryostasis. They froze them. And so when AIDS was finally understood as being HIV in about 1984. One of the doctors originally involved in his autopsy went and said, "Hey, I know where those samples are," and he went back and he pulled them out, thought them out, and they tested and they found, in fact, the antigens and the other markers of the human immunodeficiency virus, the HIV, and that was at that time that Robert Rayford became what is believed today to be the first person to succumb to the effects of HIV/AIDS. Now, in the early 1980s, when we finally did understand and have what it was and have a diagnosis and a name for it and all those good things, at that time, obviously people were looking for where did this come from? And in that time period, it was believed and reported by the CDC, in fact, that what they called patient O, meaning outside of California, we'll get to that in a minute, had been discovered. It was a French-Canadian airline steward, flight attendant, by the name of Gaton Dugas. And forgive me if I have butchered that French, but that is how I would pronounce his name with what little French I understand. And Dugas or Degas, depending on, again, how you want to pronounce it, was a sexually promiscuous homosexual man. And so it tied to him as being the person that had this and spread it around North America. But it's still kind of ambiguous where it came from originally. Well, so a lot of people considered Victum a mass murderer, if you will, because he spread this to so many other young men. But the fact of the matter was is that he wasn't the person who was the original case. Now we get into a situation where you have a thing called an index case. Now, an index case is the first published case of a new epidemiological infection. So it's not necessarily the first case. The first case, which has now since become known as patient zero, and it was because of Degas that term became associated with the first person to be infected with a new disease. So if you ever wondered where the hell did we come up with a patient zero, that's where it was. It was in a report from the CDC, and they referred to them, they were studying these cases, and they were studying cases from New York and California. So patient O, that they believed Degas was O, outside of California. Those inside and those outside. And that got misconstrued, bastardized, if you will, into patient zero, the first case. And so it has since become associated with everything where we are looking for the initial case of a new infection. So if you're wondering where that came from, that's where it came from. It came from the AIDS history. And but it didn't come from the actual patient zero, which was Robert Rayford. And it's also interesting to note that that this happened in the Midwest. You know, that this first person was in the Midwest. It was in St. Louis. It wasn't in San Francisco. It wasn't in New York. It was in the center of the nation. And sadly, of course, it was in a place where the one of the major airlines had its hub. So people coming in and out, and you know, it was an unfortunate thing for it to materialize there, and maybe contributory to its sudden and rapid spread. But anyway, it was a horrifying time, and you know, so most of us, certainly myself, didn't even hear about HIV and AIDS until the 1980s. You know, I mean, 84, around the time that Victum Degas succumbed to his illness, and it hit the news, this new sexually transmitted disease of HIV/AIDS. And, you know, still fairly young folks, you know, we're like, what the hell is this? Oh my God, where did this come from? And many of us still wonder, where did this come from? The vector analysis nowadays and the genetic analysis believes that it probably stemmed from Africa to Haiti, and from Haiti then migrated to the United States with a single visitor, immigrant, whatever, interestingly enough. So it tells you, you know, about how things can spread virally. It also tells you that most people are getting a lot more strange than I am, but I'm just saying. So anyway, today, what it would have been 50 years ago. I mean, most of us think of AIDS as being something that came out in the mid-'80s, you know, what was that, 35 years ago? But no, it was 50 years ago that the first case succumbed to his illness. Maybe, and like I say, it may have been Rayford's uncle who died in 66, so it may even be longer, but as of the current thinking is that Robert Rayford was actually the first person in North America to die from HIV-related illness. Now, it was around that same time, and I believe the following year, where the first person in the UK, or in the European Union, actually, succumbed to, yeah, it wasn't the UK, it was the European Union, I apologize, succumbed to AIDS. So, yeah, that was a long time after it really had started to become a thing and take effect and spread. So it took us about 15 years to see this happening and go, wait a minute, what is this? What's happening? And by that time, it was too late. Anyway, this, I guess, is a memorial episode in a way to Robert Rayford. And so, I mean, I don't really know what else to tell you that other than it was, like I say, it was a very scary time to live through as this information became out and we didn't know anything about it or where it came from, how it was transmitted, yada, yada, yada. And so, you know, it's good that we have a greater understanding. And I guess it's also good, we can say it's good that Victum was in fact exonerated as not being the place from which AIDS originally found its vector. So anyway, that's it. 50 years ago today. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you found it interesting. One of the things that this series has done is made people interested enough to go and do further research, and I hope that's the case for y'all. Because, you know, that makes me feel good if you guys can go, hey, I want to know more about that and who these people were and what happened. Because I can't tell you everything. I don't know everything. So if it inspires you to go and do more research, folks, go do more research. I applaud you. You know, you can't know too many things. So if you've got questions or comments, so please leave in the comment section down below, and I will do my best to answer them, or just stop and say hi. I love hearing from all of you. I really do. If you're new here, hey, thank you for joining us. I hope you found this interesting. Please consider clicking subscribe to come along for the adventure, because we got lots more to show you. And as always, folks, well, thank you for watching.